Hello everybody and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. Today we have a special live episode recorded at Eurosonic's ESNS in Holland. Today I'm joined by two wonderful guests from SheSaidSo Amsterdam, Connie and Melissa. Hi Connie, would you like to introduce yourself to the guests and tell them a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do?
Yeah, hello, my name is Connie. I'm originally from California, but I live now in Amsterdam. My background is in artist management. I did that for a decade, and right after the pandemic, or I guess during the pandemic, I was like, I want something different. I want to experience a different life. So I moved to Amsterdam, and now I work at a company called Fuga. I do marketing strategy specifically for dance electronic music.
Awesome.
And over a year ago, with the lovely lady to my right, we decided to reinvigorate the SheSaidSo chapter of Amsterdam together.
Oh, well done. And Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself to the guests?
Yeah, so I'm Melissa. I'm originally from Scotland, lost the accent a little bit. I've been living in the Netherlands now for almost 10 years. Right. And funnily enough, I also work at Fuga as a VP of audience strategy, helping artists and labels basically connect with fans, discover their audience. And we've been doing the SheSaidSo Amsterdam chapter now for just over a year.
Well done.
We're really excited to be here.
Well done for the amazing work. So I'll come back to you, Connie. How long have you actively been doing music and entertainment for, and how did you get into that?
So I've started working in music in 2013. I started, my background actually is in biology.
Cool.
And I was 22 years old working in a lab, and there was no windows.
Right.
And I was spending 8 hours a day by myself looking in a microscope, and I was like, this can't be it. This isn't it. And so I ended up moving to Los Angeles to try to find a job in the music industry. And my background was in digital marketing.
Right.
And at the time, the only jobs that I could find were working for festivals, being the runner. So all the artists being like, I need more beer, I need Gatorade. And you're like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
And that's when I met my first boss really in the music industry. Her name is Stephanie LaFera, and I went under her wing for about 10 years in artist management.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I've been around the block, as
seasoned.
they say.
Yeah. And Melissa, how about you?
So I've actually been working at Fuga now for 9 years.
Right.
I started there as a coordinator, and I worked my way up to VP.
Right.
It's been amazing, and that was really my first. I didn't even realize I could have a job in the music industry. Which I think is quite common, especially maybe for women, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I studied politics, then I studied journalism, and then I went into the sort of agency brand space.
Get you.
And the reason I got the job at Fuga was because I was a bit ballsy and 23 or 24 years old, and the agency that I worked at at the time was in the same building as Fuga.
Okay.
And I was ready to leave, and I was like, there was someone saying to me, I think there's a music company or something in like the floor above, and they're looking for a marketing person. And I literally walked up the stairs, knocked on the door, and said, hey, I hear you're looking for someone in marketing. Have you already started interviewing people?
Yeah.
And then wow. Got the job.
Really inspirational.
I don't know if I would do that now, to be honest. You're going to have that youth, ballsiness.
I get you. I get you. And have you had a musical education, or have you just come into it through a passion?
Yeah, no.
Me neither.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's what I always say is, I am your target audience.
Yeah.
I am your fan. So everything that you're doing is, I'm the person who's consuming your music.
Yeah.
So what you're working towards is speaking to someone like me.
Yeah, that's so important, isn't it? And I think that gets lost a lot in music.
Yeah.
It's literally reaching those fans and
Yeah.
making sure that you're making that message come across, and you're also representing as well your own community.
Yeah.
Now, you're from a diverse background. How do you find that representation in the music industry at the moment?
Terrible.
Yeah, sorry.
It's, I don't really approach it from a negative perspective, I think.
Yeah.
Doing these podcasts and doing panels and things like that aren't in my nature.
Right.
But I do feel that I have a certain responsibility to be seen.
Yes.
So that other people who might be interested could be like, oh yeah, there is space for this type of person.
Exactly. And I think that's super important, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I was going to say to you, Melissa, as well, like obviously you face barriers being as a woman in the music industry. How have you found that and how have you navigated that through your different roles?
Yeah, I think it's... I've had some quite unique experiences, I think, because my husband actually works at the same company that I work at. Right. And sometimes the differences are quite stark in how he is treated versus me, and it's really obvious.
I can imagine.
Really obvious. Even to the point where there was one time really, really early on in my career where I was negotiating my salary for the first time ever. And I think it was one of the most scary experiences. And looking back, I really was not asking for even as much as I should have been, actually. And my manager at the time said that because I wasn't Dutch, I would struggle to find another job here. Right, okay. So I should be grateful that I had a job here.
Awful.
And yeah, it was really bad. But then it went even further because he said, because you're my boyfriend at the time, now husband. He was like, you should be grateful because he would find it really easy to find another job because he's Dutch and speaks Dutch, and I was like, there's so many international companies, there's so many different things. So I think I'm quite lucky because I am quite naturally a bit of a ballsy person, and I think
you have to be sometimes, right?
Yeah, and honestly, moving to the Netherlands has one of the main things that it's taught me is how to communicate properly.
Right.
Being British, you're very like, oh, I don't want to, sorry, someone bumps into you and you apologize. And I think it's really taught me to just like stand up and say exactly what I mean and exactly what I want, because otherwise, why are we even having this discussion? So I think it's and there was, I think I remember another time where I was told in end of year review that I was victimizing myself.
Right. I think I've done that in the past as well.
I was like, that word in particular is not something that you should ever say. And afterwards, I actually asked the director of the department, can we just go for a coffee like outside
of work?
Outside of work, because then I think it almost levels the playing field between you and the other person.
Makes it more social.
And I just said that one particular word I think is not useful like in a professional setting. So I think I've always been blessed with being like, if something feels like unjust to me,
you've got to speak up.
I can't let it go.
You've got to speak up, and I think that's also a part of it, isn't it? It's speaking up and speaking out and ensuring that we push for change. Now, you're both from outside of Holland. Mm-hmm. How have you found that and found that the music industry here is, and how diverse do you think it is at the moment?
Oh, it's not very diverse at all.
Right.
I think the Netherlands, compared to the States, is progressive on so many things, and then at the same time not. Okay. And it's not necessarily intentional. I think it is a little bit also just reflective that it's a smaller country.
Yeah.
A different culture, and there's not, generally speaking, in this country, there's just not as much diversity as there might be in other places. And it's not it doesn't necessarily come from a bad place. But I think it is also our job to make sure the playing field is accessible to anyone who wants to come.
I think that's really important. And you started SheSaidSo in Amsterdam, so that's been out for a year now. What are the aims of doing that, and how are you expecting that to evolve over the next few years?
I think our main aim is just to let people know that we exist.
Good.
And that we're here, and that everyone is welcome. I think we do, every time we put on an event, we do get asked, is it just for women?
Yes.
And something that Connie and I are very passionate about is we all know the issues. Like if you're a minority in any sense of the word, like what the issue is.
We certainly do.
So I think we're always, all of our events are always open to women, gender non-conforming people, and allies. Good. And I think the allies bit is really, please men, come, learn.
I think that's really, really important, isn't it? It's having those allies, but also ensuring that people are aware of what's happening. But collaboration is also a big part of that too, isn't it? So what kind of things would you like to see in the next couple of years improve? And what kind of collaborations would you like to see for the future?
So I had a panel earlier about bias, and I think the challenge with bias is that it's something that you're not even aware of.
Yeah.
And my hopes is that we create a place where people can come to learn what their biases are.
Yeah, that's really important because we've all got them, haven't we?
Yeah, and it goes back to what Melissa just said, being our group serves multiple goals. It's to provide community for people who need community or want community, but then to also provide a safe space for education and resource for people to be able to ask a question like,
and not feel embarrassed,
or shamed about it. Like, hey, why is it that we need to have all of these pronouns, and why is it that we need to be doing this, and not to feel shamed to ask those questions. So my goal is for not only providing community and a place for people to come and hang and connect, but also as a place where people who might not think about these things very often can come and learn what their biases are, how they can take it back, and have a conversation again with someone else. Because that's the dream, right?
I love that.
Is having conversations.
Super important, yeah. And what about you, Melissa?
I think also just like that safe space part as well. And I think one thing that I mentioned earlier before is that we're really passionate about not just speaking in an echo chamber. And, we do want to, which I think is maybe even, I dare say, like a little radical to do as well. Like, because a lot of these groups, especially, they are only focused on women.
Yes.
And I think sometimes, maybe especially here, like they're not ready for the conversation to bring in other people as well. Like that intersectionality when it comes to feminism, I think is not something that's, I would say, really, or at least I'm not super aware of it, especially in this country.
Okay.
So I think that, and I think something that we are really trying to do, and I really hope we can do it this year, is focus groups for men.
Awesome, that's so important.
So we can ask them, like, why are you an ally?
Yes.
If you are, how do you show that day to day? How do you create a safe space for anyone that doesn't look or sound like you?
Right.
And if you don't consider yourself an ally, why not? And that really it's a safe space for them to say, I don't consider myself that, and maybe I don't know why, or I don't want to.
Or I didn't even know that the influence that I had.
And I was also part of the Key Change program in 2023. So it was really, really interesting to be around a lot of women and underrepresented groups, around gender. However, when we need people with power, we need them around the table so they can understand some of those issues, so they can drive that change. So we needed allies, and that was something that I mentioned that we was lacking in Key Change, was not having men around the table. So we need to bring them into those discussions to ensure that they can also drive for change as much as we can, because they hold the power, right?
And actually there was, it's actually on literally right now at the same time as this podcast, but I was super happy to see that there's a panel on, I forget the name of it exactly, but it was a panel about like male allyship for women in the music industry, and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen.
Congratulations.
I know. Shout out to ESNS. I've never seen a panel like that in anywhere in any country where the focus is on, okay, how can we as men be
part of this
better
movement and help drive this change, right? I think that's super important. And also, I think we've come into an age now where some people feel offended by getting the wrong pronouns, or they think, oh no, am I going to say something wrong, or am I going to be offensive? How can we address that and address that fear, I think, that's sometimes stoked around offending someone or trying to get it right or being interested in learning, but then someone shutting you down or saying, actually, you said the wrong thing.
I might deal with it.
It's a learning process, isn't it?
And I'm like, if I, and I think even I've been in situations where I've, said the wrong thing and someone has cussed me out. I should be, know, and I think like it's not. I think we, especially definitely as white people, but also definitely like men, need to learn that your ego doesn't need to be that fragile.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be that big either, does it?
No, it's not that big of a deal. Like, so you were wrong. Deal with being wrong. Like, and learn. And so you're never going to do this again. Instead of being like, ugh, they were, putting on the other person. So I'm like, deal with being wrong.
And I think also since we're both not from here and we've both had to learn a new language since moving here.
That's hard, isn't it?
So much about learning a language is being okay with sounding stupid.
Yes.
And this is what this is. Everyone's learning a new language with how the discussions around gender and it's evolving, and there's diversity, and there's a new language for it that's evolving every single year.
That's right.
And you just have to be okay with sounding stupid, being like, hey, did I say that right?
Yes.
Like, is there a better way for me to say that? And I'm so sorry if I used the wrong words. And just ask the question. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Like,
I think that's important too, right?
Yeah.
'Cause even I've made mistakes, around the gender issue and some of the trans issues and non-binary issues. We're all learning, and it's forever evolving, like you said. So it's about understanding that and giving yourself that compassion too, because it's not meant in an offensive way.
No,
and I think that's the thing. As long as your intention, when whatever you're asking or whatever you're saying comes from a place of either genuine interest to learn, or it's very obvious that you're genuinely not meaning to come across as offensive, then I think. And then when you are corrected, that you do approach it in a really loving way, then I think it's fine. But of course, if you're coming across it the opposite way, then of course you're going to have someone, be offensive, as
totally
they should
understand.
be.
And obviously you both moved to Holland, so do you think cultural and age differences have an impact on the amount of equality and diversity we can achieve at this moment in time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's beyond just Holland. I think it's the music industry in general.
100%.
But a lot of power exists right now in the generation before us.
Yeah.
And they had to work really hard to get in the positions that they're currently in. So they're very protective and precious about it.
Yeah.
And so they've kept this very old school mindset, and they haven't opened the doors and the gates for the next generation. And the generation before us everything is with a scarcity mindset. Yeah. Like, there's not enough space, there's not enough room, but there is enough space and room for everybody.
I totally agree.
And with that mindset, it's made it really difficult to break in the doors, to make change faster, because they only want to. There's quite it's not like official nepotism, but the nepotism of their own kind.
Yes, 100% agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and they're only letting in the same kind of person in, and that's just reinforcing the bias, reinforcing terrible stereotypes. Yeah. So I do think age, unfortunately, is having an effect.
I think so too, actually. And thank you for answering that, Connie. And what about yourself, Melissa?
I think also you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And I think that also pertains, but I think that also pertains to the age that you're at and the culture that you're from, because it's just not how you walk through the world. So sometimes I think literally just being open to hearing an explanation of someone else's experience and then taking that as truth is really important. And I think so I think if someone is like, okay, so we Gen Z are in the workforce now, right? And I think
about time.
And all of the people for the most part on my team that I manage are all from that generation. And I think something that I'm really staunch about is they bring their whole selves to work. Yes. Which I love.
Yes, I love that too.
And to the point where sometimes I get an email and I'm like, I need a dictionary to understand what she's asking me here. I'm like, I don't have the language to understand this. Yeah. But I love that. And I think a lot of people, the generation above me, think that that's not professional. Okay. And that, they shouldn't use this whatever language, or
some people would refer it to slang, wouldn't they?
Or they shouldn't be pushing back on work hours or anything like that. And I just think that's how you grow.
100%.
So I'm always open to everything.
And become more productive and more creative. Mm-hmm. We're in the creative industries, right? Yeah. And you've both pushed for change. So you've both been from underrepresented groups pushing for change in a country that isn't as open and diverse as we want it to be. How's that affected your mental health and the way you feel about yourselves?
It can be really frustrating because you care so much about something and you send all of these emails and you do all of these things and then you're met with criticism or people just don't respond. So I think it's just frustrating that people don't care because they think that it doesn't affect their personal lives when it does, because it's affecting all the people around them, it's affecting their communities, and it is quite frustrating. But I have to say that I'm quite lucky that I have Melissa to
Oh, that's so nice. She works as a little team.
Yeah. And we balance each other out. When I'm in a negative space, she's in a more positive one, and when she's positive,
awesome.
when she's in negative, I can counter that. I think this would be a lot more frustrating and
alone.
Yeah, alone and a bit more hopeless. I think.
Yeah.
But even if we can just have a conversation with one person at a time, it's gonna make
progress.
It's progress, because that one person is gonna have a conversation with another person. Yeah. So, in terms of my general mental health overall, it's quite okay because it gives me quite a bit of energy to do this. Even if only 5 people show up, it's an energy that I could just feed off of for so long.
It is. It's a vibe as well, isn't it? Do you have any tools or techniques that you might practice or use to help you with that? I
am a journaler too.
Connie gets up at 6 a.m. every morning to journal. So
this is a PSA warning to everyone who's in my life. Burn my journals when I die, and no one's allowed to read them.
Yeah, that's what I'll be saying. Don't read mine.
But it's just get it out of your head.
Yes.
I think it just stews and it feels so heavy when you just keep it in your head all the time.
100%.
And I think people quite often feel like they can't share their frustrations because they feel like they're a burden for other people. But that's how you build trust. When you're able to share your burden with someone else, that's trust right there.
100%.
So yeah, my tactics: write it down, get yourself a burn book, and just journal every day. You're not burdening your friends.
And don't take it personally as well. I think sometimes we're in an industry that's very competitive, and sometimes we can internalize that or take it personally when actually sometimes people are busy and they don't mean to, or they didn't see the email. So I think that's also really important too, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about email?
I think also, to Connie's point, it is when you are running something like what we do with SheSaidSo, everyone has an opinion.
Yes.
Everyone has an opinion on how you're doing it, and that is really difficult.
It's challenging.
Because sometimes I think we're both very open to, like, as long as it's constructive, please tell us. Like, we would rather you did rather than not. Yeah. But not everyone can sometimes give that feedback in that way, and I think that is sometimes really difficult. And that I struggle with that because I just think, we do this outside of our 40-hour work week, and we're also trying to do this within our 40-hour work week as well, although no one works 40 hours in the music industry. But so I sometimes just think like, just cut us a bit of slack. We are really trying.
Good.
And so so I can find that a bit of a struggle sometimes.
I can imagine. Like, we want to be inclusive and we want to include everyone and we want everyone to be heard, but not everyone can get what they want.
Yeah, and I'm like, what are you doing? If you're doing everything in your life right, for every group, then power to you.
Yeah,
but
well done. Well done. I totally get that. Connie, I was going to come back to you actually, and obviously moving from from LA to here in Holland, have you suffered from discrimination and stigma while being here, either in the workplace or outside of the workplace?
Yeah, I do get quite some benign comments often about, like, I think this is going to be crazy. I think the worst comment I've ever gotten is, you're a top shelf Asian. You're not like one of those jungle Asians.
What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. What does that even mean? Yeah, it's wild.
And I'm like, I don't even have a response for you because I'm so in shock.
I'm shocked. Even I'm shocked. I'm like, wow.
But I have to say, coming into Amsterdam, it hasn't really been an issue. I think people ask questions, but I appreciate that because
they're learning too.
They're learning.
Yeah.
And I would rather you ask a question to my face than to hold a stereotype.
Or make a judgment that might not be true.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Like, learn. Ask the question. Everyone's allowed to have a preference, but if you generalize, that's where we get into trouble.
That's where it goes wrong.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And what about you, Melissa?
I would say that probably the most amount of kind of inequality I've faced has actually been recently.
Yeah. Okay.
As I've gotten older.
Right.
Because I think So I moved here when I was 24, and I think for the most part, the playing field is pretty equal between men and women when you're around that age, or at least that was sort of my experience. And it's only now, as I've gotten into that age bracket where some of us are having children, and some of us are not, and everyone is obsessed with that question, whether you want to be or not. And the amount of times I have been asked when I'm having children, like also in a work setting as well, and when you're a mother, and I'm always like, if. Like it's not, and I think that is probably the thing that I've kind of struggled with the most, is that like stereotype of just because I'm a woman I must be a mother, and what that means and everything. And I think that's thrown up a lot of questions, also for my career, because the music industry, like many industries, but it has very specific issues if you are a woman and you want to be a mother. It's so. We talk about it.
It's really bad, actually.
The amount of times when I would show up to a show with an artist that I was managing, and they go, "Oh, are you the girlfriend?" And I'm like, "No.
Yes.
You're actually paying me the check.
Yeah, I'm in charge.
I'm in charge here." And it's like, I purposefully don't dress feminine. I purposely wear all black, just to avoid that question. And I'm not the publicist. I'm not the stylist. I'm not the girlfriend.
Many a times. And it's a sad thing to see, actually, that people judge you based on your looks or based on how you appear or how you come across.
Yeah, I remember also very actively making the decision to, when I shake someone's hand, to shake it with force.
Okay.
So that I don't come. I look like what I look like.
So you come across like quite.
Yeah, I'm small.
I can do this.
I am. I'm a small girl.
We're both not that tall.
Right.
So coming to the Netherlands, everyone is taller than us.
I've noticed that. So, I quite fit in because I'm quite tall. It's okay.
But don't underestimate me. When I shake your hand, I'm going to shake it with presence.
Yeah.
And I remember that being a very active decision.
That you made.
That I made. And I can bet you not a singular man has thought about that.
I think that's really interesting. And Mal, you brought something up when you're looking back at your colleagues that you've kind of, grown up with, and, they've flourished in their own careers. Have you found a lot of women being chosen for promotion or have moved up their ranks in their positions? Or
you had to lead the charge in a lot of those conversations.
I would say that, and this is also something that I maybe struggle actually with as well, is that when I first started working at Fuga, there was about 25 people.
Right.
In the Amsterdam office, which was the head office, and now it's like 200 and something, and 17 different countries that we're in.
Impressive.
But I was one of, I think, 4 women in the office, and I think pros and cons, but I feel like I had to be the one to be like, okay, there's no one else doing this, so I need to be the one to be like, okay, promotions, let's go.
I get that feeling a lot, actually, when you feel the only one, that you feel that need to have that drive,
carry the weight of the responsibility.
And that could be very challenging in itself.
And indeed, and for example, like in the 10 years that I've been there, there has only been literally, I think she's on maternity leave right now, one woman to have a child in the Amsterdam office, since we've been doing, so it's like that she's the first person.
Right.
So that in itself is wild, and there's so many men that have had kids
and they just go, it's all good for them. So do you think there's a fear for women having children because they might lose their career or their position in the industry?
Oh, 100%. I think that's across all industries.
Right.
But it was also very interesting. So we did an exercise where we had to write our personal highlights of the year.
Yeah.
And my personal highlight of 2024 was that I froze my eggs.
Right, okay.
And then I was asked the question, hey, is this too personal to share? And there were so many other people who had written as their personal highlight, I had a child.
Right.
What's the difference?
Yes, exactly.
One's more
that's
normal than the other, but no, it's not. why of course I would want to share that, because it is part of my...
It's beautiful, yeah. That's part of your journey.
It's part of my journey.
And in your story.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was literally your personal highlight of last year. So why would you not want to share that?
Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, and I think it's just because it wasn't the
It was
linear...
a man that asked that question.
Yeah, it wasn't the linear pathway of a woman.
Yes.
That it seemed too personal.
It is personal, but it's also a joy for you. If it's something that you want to share, then why not?
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it's just quite interesting that it's... I hadn't even clocked...
Didn't even cross your mind.
Yeah.
that would be a thing.
Wow. And I think another thing, especially around live music and touring, a lot of women don't have that childcare support when they're out doing tours or when they're doing networking or a lot of late nights. So what kind of things would you like to see in place for example, childcare in the music industry for the future that can support women in those roles?
Yeah, forever. I hate that childcare automatically falls on the woman.
Yes.
And it doesn't get accounted for the amount of hours a week that they're working, because
it's a full-time job in itself.
It's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
In my dream world, every office and every venue would have a space for breastfeeding, would have a space for for their children to come along as well.
Yes, or a crash.
Yes.
Yeah, like a free office daycare.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just so that women can still continue their lives without having to take on the sole responsibility of childcare alone.
Right, and also contribute to the workforce and to society as a whole. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's super important and empowering for women too, right?
Yeah, there's so much more research for the betterment of the economy when you have a proper maternity leave and paternity leave in place.
Shared, and it should be shared as well, I think, across the gender roles, because, a lot of people think, it should be the one that stays at home. Well, it doesn't have to be.
No.
And I think that needs to be more accommodating as well, for everyone to access that childcare.
And the percentage of women who return back to the workforce when there is a proper paternity leave in place is so much higher. Right. And also for the mental health of the whoever is acting on the paternity side. Because they get to feel like they're participating in the child's life.
Yes.
And then when there's more people in the workforce, it's better for the economy in general.
100%,
So it doesn't. It's so silly that it doesn't exist.
It is silly, isn't it? And I hope that changes.
Yeah.
I really do. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's been awesome. Have you got any major wins or successes you would like to share with us before we go?
Yeah, we've got sponsorship for the year for SheSaidSo.
Congratulations.
Amsterdam. It's
first time that we've ever received quite a substantial amount of money.
That's high.
Which has been great.
Yeah, because for us, access should be free. It's something that we really, really believe in, and now that we have a chunk of money, we know that we can already plan out the year and have people come and not have to pay anything. There's no sponsorship fees, there's no tickets or anything. They can just come and participate.
That is so cool, because that was one of the barriers for me with SheSaidSo in the UK, is there was a fee.
Yes.
And at that time I couldn't afford the fee because I had children myself, got a house to run and was by myself. How am I going to do those things and pay the bills? Mm-hmm. So even that little £5 a month sometimes was unaffordable, which then stops that diversity and inclusion.
Exactly.
So it's another barrier, so I'm really pleased to hear that.
Yeah, and I think something we really wanted to chase getting like a bigger sponsor on board was that indeed if you come to our events, they are all free. And if we have, a photographer there or a videographer there, or there's a DJ, like we want to pay them as well for their work.
Super important, because I've done a lot of it for free. You do a lot of that when you feel that responsibility and you want to see that change. You'll take that burden on because you want to drive through that change. Yeah. So well done. And I know you do a lot of networking events as well. Have you got any coming up that you'd like to share?
Yeah, hopefully we're going to be announcing something for next month.
Yes. Yeah. It's like the sort of launch of our partnership with this company. And it's going to be in Amsterdam.
Drum roll.
I don't think we have a date set just yet, but it's going to be free. It's going to be a networking kind of bottle thing.
Oh, that's right on my street.
Yeah. Oh, nice. And we're going to do, we started doing this thing called like free headshots. Yeah. Everyone loves them.
I love them.
So come get a free headshot when we do it.
And you can use them as well, right?
Exactly. So that's going to be in February.
Great. And how could people connect with you? If they want to find out more, they want to connect with you personally, how could they do that?
So you can go to our SheSaidSo Instagram. You can literally DM Connie or I on Instagram. On LinkedIn, we also have a WhatsApp group as well.
Awesome.
That's split into different groups for jobs, for more junior people, for parents, for more senior people, a general one. So I would say those platforms.
Yeah, all the information is on our website. It's www.SheSaidSo.Amsterdam.
Awesome. Please do go and check that out. I just want to say a massive thank you to Melissa and to Connie for coming along today. It's been absolutely awesome to meet you both and to speak with you in person.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
You know, keep doing the amazing work, and thank you both for doing what you do.
Thanks for letting us have a conversation.
It's awesome. Thank you. Thanks. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Oh. I forgot there was people listening.
Thank you.
Oh, that was so nice.
Literally, my glasses are